A young woman with a bright smile and a promising future vanished on a warm summer's morning, leaving nothing but questions in her wake. On June 17, 1996, 21-year-old Jennifer Wilbanks was set to run a marathon in her hometown of Duluth, Georgia. Friends and family were proud to support her ambitious goal. Off all alone, she trained hard, only to disappear during her routine jog. At first, it seemed a simple case of someone getting lost or distracted while running. Jennifer was a familiar sight darting through the suburban streets, her determination evident with every stride. But as hours turned into days and the search efforts intensified across the quiet neighborhoods of Duluth, the anxiety began to thicken in the air. As search parties combed through parks, woods, and community spaces, her loved ones remained hopeful. Jennifer's parents, Mary and John, stood at the forefront of it all, desperate for any sign of their little girl. Their hearts sank deeper as time passed. Where could she have gone? A chance encounter? An accident? The thoughts danced ominously in the back of their minds. The police quickly organized search teams while broadcasting Jennifer's photo across local news stations. Yet every day without answers chipped away at their hope. The narrative began to shift. The initial assumption of a local young woman lost on her run morphed into something darker. Friends and neighbors whispered, "Did someone take her?" Days rolled into a week. Then, almost as suddenly as she had vanished, Jennifer was found, abandoned and in distress, over 100 miles away in the town of Lenoir City, Tennessee. On June 23rd, Jennifer was spotted wandering on a highway, her clothes disheveled and her demeanor erratic. Authorities were alerted, and it wasn't long before they arrived, racing toward a resolution desperately needed in the small Georgia community. While the Wilbanks family, especially her parents, celebrated the news of her being found alive, a cloud of confusion and concern hung heavy. What had happened during those 6 days? Jennifer refused to explain the events leading to her absence initially, and when she finally opened up, the story felt tangled, like a broken thread. She claimed she had been abducted by a man who had forced her into a van. In fear for her life, she had fled, managing to escape and run down the highway before being found by police. The details didn't fully add up. A woman with a strong will to survive could have escaped, sure, but where was the proof of a kidnapping? Authorities launched an extensive investigation into her account. Investigators questioned every detail, checking for CCTV footage and further evidence. But they soon hit dead ends when it came to corroborating her story. There were no leads, no witnesses, no reports of a suspicious van in the area. It was as though Jennifer Wilbanks had stepped out of her ordinary life and into thin air, only to return with tales of a nightmare that remained stubbornly unproven. She also seemed to shift in her narrative, hinting at mental health struggles, a topic rarely broached in public discussions back in the 90s. There were allusions to overwhelming anxiety about her life, her future, even her relationships. Those closest to her began to speculate if her vanishing act was, in fact, a desperate escape from the pressures she faced. It would explain the absence of clear evidence of abduction and perhaps a partial truth about the harrowing experience. Back in Duluth, the whispers turned into murmurs of doubt about the authenticity of her claim. The more Jennifer tried to convince people of her ordeal, the more questions arose. Was it possible that she had orchestrated her own disappearance? In a strange twist, Jennifer eventually confessed to having run away to start anew and faced the pressure of unmet expectations she felt burdened by. As the dust settled, questions loomed large over her actions. Many were outraged at the time, viewing her behavior as a cruel twist in a society quick to sympathize with the vulnerable, but often harsh on those he deemed irrational. Someone goes missing and they come back claiming someone took them? It must be a joke, one bystander was quoted saying. The public sentiment quickly shifted. What began with sympathy morphed into frustration and anger. There was no doubt that Jennifer's case had highlighted deeper societal issues it seemed nobody wanted to confront. Jennifer became somewhat of a pariah in her hometown. A young woman once celebrated for her tenacity now turned into a figure of ridicule. Her story sparked a national debate about mental health awareness, leading to discussions that had long been buried. It was a double-edged sword. She was safe, but at what cost? In the aftermath, She struggled with her image and her mental health. The burden of being at the center of a media storm took its toll. Several months after her return, she moved away from Duluth to start afresh and put distance between herself and the pain that lingered in the town. The questions remained. How much of the truth had she hidden? Could her story of abduction have been a plea for understanding about her mental state? As of now, Jennifer Wilbank's case remains officially solved, yet still retains a haunting ambiguity. With every passing year, people wonder about the woman who was both victim and villain of her own tale, constantly battling the specters of doubt and perception. So as you listen to this story, think about the journeys we take, not just the physical, but those haunting paths of our minds. What compels someone to escape their life, to run away from everything they know? And even more chillingly, how often do we miss the signs, wrapped in our own perceptions of what reality should be? Because sometimes the truth isn't as clear-cut as we wish it was. Sometimes it's complicated, just like life itself.